in some areas where students choose to work the minimum period required them to finish school. Due to lack of education and training, they are less productive than they would have been if they didn't have the EI incentive. The third argument is that the EI discourages the most important factor that contributes to economic growth, which is technological development. As EI limits their tremendous challenge in technology growth, because as the growth rate states that unemployment Ontario states outward well. The gesture, especially EI, are inevitable to finance itself, both the burden on government expenditure. The government expenditure on EI is still in consumption, it cracks out investment. The EI can also encourage the unemployed to remain in their status quo, as mentioned by Tapia and unemployed laid off. The more they remain unemployed, the more skills they lose. Without being employed, workers are not using their skills from learning by doing. And indigenous technological growth is by indigenous technological growth, you mean technical improvement that change intrinsically to the input that's being used. So in conclusion, the EI has a negative effect on economic growth. The three main reasons that hinder economic growth are decrease in factory supply, decrease in efficiency, and decrease in technological development.
Thank you. So now you get to rebut whatever arguments they have. So they've said things and you get to say, I don't think you're right. And if you don't want to do that, we'll pass it over to them, and if they don't have that, then we can get to the question and answer. Do you want to rebut anything they've said?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so since we're arguing that EI stimulates economic growth, you're arguing the opposite. Therefore, EI actually hinders economic growth. So can I ask a question?
Well, are you arguing EI hinders or EI does? It hinders. Okay. Can you give us one? What's your major argument? Why does EI hinder economic growth?
Because it decreases productivity.
Because it decreases productivity. And how does it decrease productivity? How does EI hinder productivity, decrease productivity, output per person? I guess you could argue, well, it's an incentive to stay unemployed for longer, and therefore output per person is dropping.
Like what we're saying is
It's a disincentive to work, in other words.
to go back to the labor
Yeah.
force. Because they have money to support.
You know, and that's the game that's played, and I shouldn't say game, but it is a game that people play in the Maritimes, right? They go fish for lobster for 10 weeks, and then they go on EI for the rest of the year. And the problem with that is it's not an incentive for the people in the Maritimes to move out of the Maritimes. And don't get me wrong, I have relatives in the Maritimes, and I like the Maritimes, but why should I be subsidizing my relatives to live in a beautiful area like the Maritimes, and I'm subjected to living in this overcrowded city? And so I have to work hard to subsidize my relatives. So they get to sit on the shores of the Kennebecasis River watching the salmon float by, and I get to sit in downtown Vancouver watching the cars crash into each other.
Yeah, but the problem is EI doesn't last forever. So even if you want to sit idly and collect those benefits, you can't do so.
What happens after you're off EI, after the 45 or 50 weeks? What happens? You get nothing?
Well, assuming rationality, people will pursue.
No, but I'm asking, what's the rule? You get EI for 50 weeks, let's say.
I think if you qualify for welfare, you can go on welfare,
Yeah.
which is just like free money, like no.
Yeah, but it's not much, it's only 6 or 8
Yeah,
hours.
there's certain criteria, but,
Yeah.
and if you can't get on welfare, you just get nothing.
Then you start. Yeah, so you get this insurance policy for 45, 50 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging it's helping you get over a hump because you've been unemployed, temporarily unemployed.
If you apply, if you qualify for it.
So, okay, so back to the point. I think we should go to the question and answer period. Why don't you ask those people?
Yeah.
So I would like you guys to ask them whatever you want to ask them. Basically, why is EI a negative? Why is it bad? And they've responded, I think it's a disincentive to work. Do you have any other arguments on why it's bad? EI is not a good idea because it just fosters laziness. If you've lost your job, get out and find a new one. And by the way, why don't you self-insure? That's a good idea, right? Why don't you self-insure? Which is, why don't you save a little bit of money when you're working because you know you're going to be unemployed. Everybody is. So save your own money. Self-employed, self-insure instead of having an insurance policy.
I was just wondering if you could elaborate on like regional disparity and what it means because of the difference in how much you receive in EI and say the Maritimes and British Columbia.
By regional disparity, we mean in certain areas, like British Columbia with low unemployment, you need a higher working hour to acquire for the insurance. Well, in those places like Maritime, you just need to work seasonal jobs to get insured. That's why, and then because there's a lot of money flowing from the low.
No, but the argument is there's a greater probability of being unemployed in the Maritimes. So therefore, if you're lucky enough to get a job for 500 hours, that's equivalent to getting a 700-hour job in Vancouver. So you're treating equals equal.
But then,
And equal is defined by the probability of getting fired, the probability of not having a job. So if you're lucky enough to keep a job for 500 hours in the Maritimes, that's equivalent to holding a job for 700 hours here. So why isn't that fair?
I don't think that's equivalent because the nature of the job are different. Because in Maritime, the jobs are very seasonal, but where in BC, then you have to really work hard to get a job. And in Maritime, it's the season you get to work because it's the season's work.
But if the reason for the 500 versus 700 hours, or if the reason for the difference is not to equate the two opportunities, then what is it for?
I think people have a right to mobilize.
I think it's
search
for
for a better job.
because they have the high unemployment rate. The government is trying to help. That's why they put like a higher. They give them more chance to get the EI because they're like they don't want them to always stay unemployed. So they're like, oh, I'm going to give more benefits to them because I need to help that province.
What about the argument that if you make it 500 hours in the Maritimes, 700 in BC, you've eliminated the incentive to get out of the Maritimes? Why not have them equal? Both are 700 hours. And if there's a greater probability of getting fired in the Maritimes or losing your job in the Maritimes, then you should leave them.
In that case, if it said that it's easier to get employee insurance in the Maritimes, then it would promote more people to actually go there and work and develop the area, and that would actually stimulate growth for the country.
Go there and work. Can you explain that? Go there and work.
Well,
Well, you guys are arguing that employment insurance increases economic growth. Prove it. Convince us that employment insurance is a great idea.
All right, so growth is defined as the annual percentage increase in per capita real potential gross domestic product, so basically average real GDP. In other words, this real GDP is maximized when each individual maximizes their own productivity. No, their own, using their skill to like best fit whatever job position they can acquire. Correct?
Yeah.
Building on that. It goes back to the signal. All right, in the absence of employment insurance, we have well, individuals in general have an incentive to just find whatever job they can for the sake of living, basic consumption.
Individual ambition serves the common good. Famous guy said that. Individual ambition serves the common good. Hunger is a great incentive.
Because they want to secure basic consumption, they tend to go to whatever job they can possibly acquire. And that's not really maximizing personal productivity, I guess. Yeah, this is just one of our arguments, but with the implementation of employment insurance, for certain workers, their reserve wages go up. So for example, if Clemens was like if he had like a dual degree, like in law and economics or something, his reserve wages would go up, and he would more likely pursue those positions that he can earn higher wages and doesn't maximize his personal productivity. Whereas with low productivity workers, they know personally that they cannot afford to signal because, well, why? So, thus, with absence, you have low productivity and low productivity. With its implementation, you have low and high, which obviously is.
But there's a problem where you have to deal with where, if say you have a degree in law or economics and you go on
Or both.
or both, and you want, and say you have there's training programs available, but what if there's a mismatch between the training programs and and the skills you previously had? So say your skills were obsolete and you had to go into a new program. And then after that skill was obsolete, you have to go to another one. And in the long run, you're doing different jobs. You're not learning by doing because you are not staying with your job for a longer time. So in the long term, your productivity is not increasing because you just start a different job every time. So like say, think about it, like what Damien always says, a baker. Like if he bakes bread for 10 years, he's going to be better than someone who bakes for a year, who just learned the skill.
Convince we three judges that not having employment insurance is a good idea. Convince us that not having employment insurance, not having insurance provided by the state for random exogenous shocks that put you out of work is a bad idea. For example, it may be no fault of your own that RIM goes under. I mean, there's just thousands of people in RIM who are losing their jobs. Very well-educated people in Waterloo, they just laid off 400 yesterday. Convince us it's not a good idea to help those out. It's almost like having health insurance, right? You get a very serious medical illness. As Canadians, we say, because we're all a family, we'll help you out. And on the employment side, for some random disease shock, you lose your job. And as Canadians, we say, well, we're going to help you out. Not forever, ever, but we'll give you a boost up. What's wrong with that? Sounds like the Canadian way of doing it. Kind, caring, and compassion.
Because when people tend to rely on the EI once they lose their job. Since it's there, they will use.
Is that true or is that an exception?
It's
Do you have data that proves that most people, when they're unemployed,
Yeah,
really treat it like a vacation?
yeah, like.
I've never met anyone
Not
who
a
gets
vacation,
fired
but-
and then says, oh, I'm glad I'm fired, now it's like being on a vacation.
No, but.
The people I know who get fired say, oh my God, this is scary.
But there's recent statistics shown by Statistics Canada that people are staying unemployed for longer, and the number have tripled. For people who stayed longer than.
Yeah, but that might not be because they want to stay unemployed. It could be frictional and structural unemployment. Normal unemployment rates are rising. Nauru has risen from 4.5 to about 7%. We're at 7.1 now. Most people argue, most economists argue that the unemployment rate at 7 is the natural rate of unemployment. So